My friends, the great renaissance of turn-based tactics continues with the recent announcement of the sequel to Unicorn Overlord, Langrisser Sea of Sword. Wait, is this... I thought Langrisser was... But this looks like... Oh no. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and I haven't been wanting to make this video. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, even if sometimes that is a slightly concerned and or less enthusiastic discussion of a recently announced title such as Langrisser Sea of Sword, then a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. So yes, if you didn't hear the news, Langrisser is back, which should be a time for celebration, because even though I've never played it before, Langrisser has always been one of the series that I've heard mentioned in the deeper circles of fans of turn-based tactics and strategy, up there alongside some of the more readily notable titles like your Fire Emblems, your Final Fantasy Tactics, etc. I've seen it referred to as Sega's answer to Fire Emblem, and I can definitely see where the inspiration comes from looking at some of the old screenshots and from gameplay I've watched in the past. So when a user reached out to me on Twitter and let me know that, hey, there's a new trailer for a new Langrisser game, I got super hyped, because that could be an awesome return for another long-standing staple of our favorite genre. And then I actually took the chance to sit down and watch the thing. I have concerns about this trailer and the blatant, almost dare I say, rip-off nature of a lot of these art style inspirations, shall we say, in compared to Unicorn Overlord, is by far the least of those concerns. Before we get too deep into the critique itself, however, here's the general gist of what we know thus far. While we don't yet have a release date, Langrisser Sea of Swords is going to be released on Steam and mobile, and is being developed by Blackjack Studio with publisher Hong Kong Game Tree Limited. It is going to be a free-to-play title, and it's implied that the game is going to be a gacha title, seeing as how the past titles by Blackjack Studio, such as Langrisser Mobile and the legally embattled Mekarashi, are also gacha titles. That said, it looks like the intent this time around is to evolve the leader and squad combat system of the Langrisser series by allowing you two heroes and two troop types compared to the singular options of the past, letting you choose which of the two you'll be bringing into a battle and giving you more tactical options as a result. From what we've seen thus far, it does look like you'll still be moving about on a grid as you would expect, until you're in the overworld, where you're going to be running around and navigating and taking on obstacles and quests and visiting cities, much like, again, Unicorn Overlord. Much like it. Much like it. When building your squads out, you'll be able to freely change what troop types are being led by both of the heroes in the squad, and the different heroes that you can have paired up. We'll also be able to get different combo skills based on who's with whom, what their bond levels are like, and classic tactics RPG stuff. There will be some level of base building and upgrades, allowing you to establish a foothold in a section of the land and grow it over time, in part due to gathering materials off of the world map again. When characters meet up to discuss various different story events, they'll run up on each other in, again, a very familiar style. Okay, look, listen, I can't keep doing this, man. We gotta talk about this, alright, because this is fairly ridiculous. There are a lot of issues with this initial trailer for Langrisser Sea of Sword. Obviously, we've been alluding to it throughout the video already, and it's been in everyone's faces the entire time. If you're familiar at all with Unicorn Overlord, and I imagine the majority of you watching this video and who watch my channel are, then there's going to be more than a slight resemblance to that game here with a new Langrisser title. On its face, fair enough, that's fine. There's a reason that we have a phenomenon where we call something a blank-like, a Souls-like, a Minecraft-like, an FE-like. There's inspiration in genres that people take from some of the biggest names in those genres that they then build off of to make their own unique thing. And an old series in the turn-based tactics space, or the turn-based strategy, or even technically real-time strategy, again, definitions get wonky with Unicorn Overlord, but whatever. Taking inspiration from a title that came out of nowhere and absolutely blew everybody's socks off and impressed the world, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. However, it's the extreme similarities here that really make me quirk up an eyebrow. The world map alone is strikingly similar. And believe me when I say I am not the only one who is saying this. There are a lot of people across various different social media platforms that I've looked into for impressions of this new game that feel the same way. I mean, look at some of these shots of, say, our main character, the Nameless, running through this gate to progress to a different section of the world. If I edited that out and put a lane there on his horse instead, it would be nigh indistinguishable in the moment from a shot of a clip from Unicorn Overlord. And to me, that is a step too far. It rubs me the wrong way that the developers aren't confident enough in their own abilities artistically to make a open world Unicorn Overlord style experience, but also make it their own. It feels cheap, it feels uninspired, and it immediately puts a bad taste in my mouth. Then, of course, there's the previously mentioned base building and other aspects of constructing your own keep and finding resources around the world, engaging in quests. We haven't seen a ton of that based on this trailer, but I would not be surprised if, as more information comes out, the similarities continue to build. I would absolutely love to see more tactics and strategy games embracing an open world exploration style of world map, taking inspiration from Unicorn Overlord and making it their own, but that does not, at first impressions, seem to be what we're getting here, and I'm not happy about it as a result. Speaking of things I'm unhappy about with the first impressions, holy God, the fan service in this is already egregious. And of course, if this is going to be a gacha title, which we will talk about more in depth in a second, then I can't say that I'm too surprised about that, but even then, I've seen so much more tasteful applications of fan servicey designs in turn-based tactics in general, and even in gacha tactics. And to be completely transparent here, again, if we're going to keep talking about comparisons to Unicorn Overlord has plenty of fan servicey designs. We're all aware of how big of a fan everyone is of Rosalinda and Eltalinda and Scarlet and Yana and Unifi. The list goes on and on. But there's a certain amount of more tastefulness in the way that Vanillaware applied its fan service that is very much not present here with Langrisser Sea of Sword. Well, yes, as Scarlet walks around, she's jiggling and bobbling all over the place. It's not directly shoved in your face in the way it is here. I mean, look at some of these shots of characters activating abilities or introducing themselves. Like, the best way I can describe it is as the visual representation of someone breasting boobily down the stairs. It's just egregious for the sake of it, and to me, it detracts from the overall art and style of the game. There's going to be plenty of people who are totally into it, and if you are, that's fine. This is not a critique of you, but it is a critique of the way that you're presenting fan service, when there's obvious examples of it being done in a more reasonable way, shall we say. I mean, let's look at this Dami Mommy Dark Empress character here. If that material between her hands was not colored purple, you would think that it's something from a very different side of the internet, and as far as I can tell from first impressions, there's no reason for it to be that way, and yet here we are. It's over the top in a way that is off-putting. Not even necessarily funny, at least to me. And again, we mentioned other tactics gacha titles. I've played a few in the past, and I still play one of them. I played a ton of Fire Emblem Heroes in the past, and I still play Sword of Convallaria. And both of those absolutely have characters that have more fan-servicey character designs, male and female. Back in the day, Fire Emblem Heroes got a tad egregious with some of its stuff. I haven't played it in a long time, but they did wind up walking that back a fair bit, even when I was still playing. And in Sword of Convallaria, a lot of the characters that are definitely more fan-servicey, like one of my favorites, Rawia, still is just more of a character with an attractive design, not explicitly looking like they're coming out of an ecchi manga. Speaking of Sword of Convallaria as well, that is a great transition into the overall gacha problem, which is already going to be a 100% turnoff for plenty of people, and I totally understand that as well. While I'm not necessarily opposed automatically to gacha games right off the cuff, the vast majority of that scene does not appeal to me. I'm very selective about what I do like. I enjoy Sword of Convallaria because it specifically has full modes and aspects of the game that are completely divorced from that gacha gameplay, summoning characters, SSR ranking, yada 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 scenario. And to me, if you're going to do a free-to-play gacha tactics game, having that as an option for players who still want to enjoy the art and the mechanics in the world but have no interest in engaging with that monetization side, that's a very reasonable thing to do if it's within your capability. We don't know yet if that is or is not going to be the case in Langrisser Langrisser Sea of Sword, but I am very concerned that it won't be, as it's going to very much limit the amount of people who'll be interested in playing the game, when right now is the perfect opportunity for a fully fledged, proper single-player campaign experience Langrisser title to come out and bring the series back into the limelight when so many people are interested in playing more new or returning tactics games. It's not something that we can comment on too much more beyond that, since we don't really know anything about how this is all going to work, but it is definitely a concern. Finally, I have a bunch of concerns about the dev team and publishers behind this title in general. As we mentioned at the top of the video, the game is being developed by Blackjack Studio and published by Hong Kong Game Tree Limited, both of which are, as far as I was able to find in my research, exclusively gacha game companies, and they seem to have a little bit of a checkered past. One of the first notable things I found about Blackjack was a lawsuit that they were involved in with Square Enix themselves over assets being utilized for their gacha mecha title Mecharashi, which was originally apparently supposed to be a front mission title. I hadn't seen too much about Mecharashi in the past. I think I'd been reached out to at one point to check it out back when it was first going to be releasing, didn't follow through on that. But I definitely remember it looking a lot like Front Mission when I first saw it, so this is perhaps not the most surprising thing to hear. Don't know how that lawsuit wound up playing out. I have no horse in that race, one way or the other, but it was interesting that was one of the first things that came up about this studio. The next thing I noticed was on their Steam page, how they have billed themselves as the original creators of Langrisser, which, while I'm not familiar with the ins and outs of who exactly works at the studio, what seems to be happening here is that they are describing themselves as the original developers of Langrisser, i.e. Langrisser Mobile, which in all advertising is just called Langrisser. However, the wording here definitely implies that this is the original dev team who created the franchise way back when, and while that could be innocent, it also strikes a little bit of trying to be deceptive towards people who are longtime fans of the franchise and don't know any better. Again, that's allegedly. I have no basis to really establish that off of, but it definitely made me raise my eyebrows a little bit. And then there's this really funny thing I noticed about the actual trailer for Langrisser Sea of Sword. The trailer came out at time of recording 7 days ago. It's been posted to the Langrisser Sea of Sword YouTube channel that has 2,003 subscribers, and yet apparently in the last week has accumulated a massive 2.3 million views, which is very interesting considering Langrisser is a very niche franchise in the already niche genre, if growing, of turn-based tactics and strategy. What else is interesting is the fact that it only has 462 upvotes and then 16 downvotes for a combined total of 478 votes in general and 202 comments, which is a hysterically low amount of engagement for something with that many views. For a direct comparison, let's look at the announcement trailer for Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, one of the single highest grossing turn-based tactics franchises of all time, and one of the first franchises that people think of if you mention the genre to them nowadays. Posted to the official Nintendo of America YouTube channel with 10.2 million subscribers 10 months ago, this trailer has somehow only amassed half of the views of the Langrisser Sea of Sword trailer with 1.1 million views. However, despite having only half of the views, staggeringly, it has a much higher number of upvotes and downvotes, 36k to 1.3k, and an absolutely crushingly larger amount of comments at 6,197. What does this mean for the trailer for Langrisser Sea of Sword? Do we have a weird embedding thing going on? Is there bot views happening? Who knows? I'm not a lawyer, and I'm certainly not an internet engineer, so I don't know one way or the other, but I definitely thought it was an interesting little bit of potential tomfoolery. All of these issues combined make me very concerned about this new entry in the Langrisser franchise. Am I being extremely harsh based off of the back of one trailer and a few media assets? Maybe, but first impressions are massively important, and almost every single turn-based tactics game that we've seen in the last 5 years has looked really interesting, or at least like it had potential right off the jump, or at least all the ones that I've seen have. This is the first time I've had really major alarm bells go off in my mind, and I know I'm definitely not the only one. I will, of course, be continuing to keep my eye on Langrisser Sea of Sword as we see more trailers, assets, whatever come out for it. I'll be keeping an eye on it, looking into it. Maybe the game will actually be really fun and really enjoyable. I'll definitely check it out once it launches to build a proper full opinion, but right now, I have a lot of concerns, and those concerns far outweigh what I'm interested in. Does the gameplay look like it could actually be quite fun? Yeah. Is there the potential that the mechanics could be pretty damn deep, especially with the different customizability of squad? 100%. Could the maps be tricky to navigate with lots of destructible terrain, magic you can use to build new paths, all that fun stuff? Of course it could be. But until we're able to see a whole lot more of it, consider me skeptical at best. Of course, though, I am just one man. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Try to keep it a little bit respectful, but if you do have thoughts that differ from my own, feel free to share it. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that discussion in particular. I think it'll be an interesting one, and we'll see what else comes out about Langrisser Sea of Sword as time goes by, including whenever the release date is going to be. With all that said, though, I'm going to wrap this one up here. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Thank you all so very much for watching. Hope that you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there, everybody. And remember, be good to each other, y'all. Bye now.